An expert in childhood trauma once said, "Trauma is not what happens to us. It's what happens within us as a result of what happens to us." Trauma is that scarring that makes us less flexible and more rigid, less feeling and more defended. Now, I agree with this expert, but in my 40 years of working with people to heal their trauma and to heal my own trauma of losing my parents young, of teenage rape, of growing up with a brother with mental illness who I lost 4 years ago this week, I know that we can heal our deepest wounds through the processes that I've developed called emotional alchemy. So alchemy, as you may know, is a mysterious or magical process or power that transforms one element into another. Think crazy scientist trying to turn lead into gold. In my work with clients, we use emotional alchemy to unearth the shattered and discarded pieces of their lives that have been hidden deep below the surface of their conscious awareness. We revisit the stories, we grieve the pain and loss, we soothe the inner child, all in a sacred container of compassion and acceptance and forgiveness and love. And then we celebrate and honor that person's resiliency and courage. And in the process, we transform self-doubt into self-acceptance, self-criticism into self-approval, and maybe even self-loathing into self-love. I'd like to share a short exercise with you to show you how you might use emotional alchemy in your own life. So I'm going to invite you to put your feet flat on the floor. Close or lower your eyes. Bring one or both hands to your heart and your awareness to your breath. And just notice as your breath moves easily and effortlessly. Perhaps even imagine it moving in and out of your heart, like a gentle wave that comes up onto the beach and then flows back into the ocean. And now I'll invite you to slow down that breath even more. Inhaling for 5 seconds and exhaling for 5 seconds. Breathing in and breathing out. And into this flow of slow and easy breath, I'm going to introduce some words that have a high vibration. Appreciation, gratitude, care, compassion. Appreciation, gratitude, care, compassion. Just allow the energy of those words to float through your body, perhaps even imagining that every cell is opening up like a sponge, just soaking up the healing energy of those words. Just taking another breath or two and then allowing your hands to gently fall back into your lap and your eyes to float open on the next wave of breath. Taking a moment to just notice how you feel. In this exercise, by closing our eyes, bringing our attention to our heart, and slowing our breath, we send a message to the amygdala, which controls your fight or flight response, that you're safe and you can relax. When we add the high vibration words, we literally flip a switch in your limbic system that turns off the flow of destructive, heavy chemistry, stress-related, that's moving through your body, and actually turns on the flow of lighter, constructive chemistry that heals your cells and your organs as it's moving through your body. Research by the Institute of Heart Math has shown that if you do this heart-brain coherence exercise for 3 minutes, that positive chemistry will continue to flow through your body for 6 hours. Not a bad return on your investment, right? Imagine the healing possibilities if you were to do this exercise once a day, or maybe even 2 or 3 times a day, or get 24-hour coverage. Amazing healing. So how does this mysterious transmuting take place? Well, we have to start with energy, because everything in the universe is made of energy, right? Even your thoughts and emotions. I was blown away when I heard that emotions are actually energy. Think emotion, energy in motion. So whatever you've heard about your emotions, they're not good or bad. They're not right or wrong. They're simply information in the form of chemistry that moves through your body in response to what you're experiencing, either in the outside world or maybe in your own inner world, that's telling you whether that experience is supporting you or detracting from your well-being. Pretty amazing, right? You can see, or maybe, I hope you can, on both the emotional guidance scale and the map of consciousness that there is a continuum of emotional energy. At one end are the higher, lighter vibrating energies like love and joy and appreciation and gratitude. And again, these move through our bodies quickly. We feel good as they're moving through. And they repair and heal our cells and our organs as it moves through our body. On the other end of the continuum, by contrast, are the heavier, denser emotions like guilt and shame, despair and powerlessness. You can even feel the difference as I say them, right? This energy is heavy, and it moves through our body much more slowly, like molasses. And it actually detracts from our well-being, wearing down our cells and our organs. And on this emotional guidance scale, we each actually have what I call a personal energy signature. It's kind of like a set point or a bandwidth where we just naturally hang out as we're doing life. And it depends on our life experiences and the emotions that we've experienced along with those life experiences. So your personal energy signature has its own unique vibrational signature. Now, because energy attracts like energy, you are actually attracting people, circumstances, and things to you that match your personal energy signature. That may not be what you think you want. What's happening up here in your thinking mind is not a match for what's actually in this energy field. So you may not be getting what you want. In my work and in my personal life, I've discovered that doing the work of emotional alchemy, discharging the heavy, dense energy, is the thing that allows us to move up that vibrational scale, begin to shift our beliefs and our mindset, reframe our stories, and actually create a new personal energy signature, which now allows us to attract more of the things that we want. Imagine the Titanic as your mind, just as a demonstration, or this iceberg. 3 to 5% is actually your thinking mind, what you know that you know. Everything else is below the surface of your awareness. 95 to 97% of what you have taken in through your life is stored in that sub or unconscious mind. Most of this, the overwhelming majority, was developed from the time you were 6 months in utero to about 6 years old, where your brain was developing and you had no ability to monitor what was coming in. So everything came in through your senses and literally was just stored. It was like a data operator was just putting this information into your system. And every time we want to experience change, our survival mind wants to bring us back to that original default planning. So Dr. Bruce Lipton has told us in his work of epigenetics that there's one really important way that we can begin to change this old programming. And his research has shown that when we can switch our thoughts from thoughts that make us feel angry or afraid or ashamed to thoughts that make us feel happy or joyful or appreciative for as little as 17 seconds, we literally begin to change what's going on in our DNA. They can see the change in the markers in our DNA in that short period of time. Again, that blew me away when I found that out. What's the possibility then for healing ourselves mentally, emotionally, and even physically, simply by changing our thoughts? Well, that sounds easy, right? Change your thoughts, change your emotions, heal your DNA, live a long and happy life. Awesome. Not so easy. I'm sure everyone in this room knows that it's not that easy to quiet your inner critic or to change an unhealthy habit. Why is that? Well, I've alluded to it already. Your survival mind, the primitive part of your brain, we heard Matt reference, is wired for your survival. It sees change as dangerous, maybe even deadly. So if you try to go off course, it's like setting off alarms in your mind that will try to get you back on track with your default programming. So the alarms go off, and the next thing you know, your body is literally creating anxiety, your mind-body, as a way to get you back on track. And then you're doing the very thing that you were trying to change now as a way to deal with your anxiety. This is what I call self-sabotage 101. And then you add in this idea that all of these programs were created by the time we were 6 years old. Well, that's a little frightening, isn't it? So just like the captain of the Titanic, we can't really change our mind. Just like he couldn't avoid that iceberg because he didn't know what was underneath the surface. We have to change what's under the surface in order to make really any real and lasting change to what's going on up here. So how do we do that? How do we get below the surface? Well, we just did it in the heart-brain exercise. We literally dropped from our heads into our hearts. We lost our mind and came to our senses. We dropped out of our cortical brain and into our heart brain. Yep, you have a brain in your heart. It was actually created before this brain. And it has its entire own system that takes in information, processes it, sorts it, remembers it, and then actually sends it out to the rest of your body. It sends information to your cortical brain and to the rest of your body. Amazing, right? And this brain is extremely powerful. But as we go through life, life happens, right? And we'll hear more about that today. And we can begin to be boxed in by these emotions of powerlessness and shame and pain and fear and betrayal. And before we know it, we're cut off from the power, the healing power, and the intuitive power of our heart brain. I want to share a story about this from one of my clients. Anna was a 6-year-old, very shy little 6-year-old girl, and she had to move with her mom and her brother to a new state while her dad stayed back and finished up his job. Now, Anna was not a great student. She had trouble reading, and in her new school, her teacher was very strict, and that made it even harder for her to read, and she started to get picked on by the other kids. It was not a happy time in her life. But her dad finally arrived, and he was actually started to read with her at night. He even came to school in uniform a couple days, and that, built up her credibility. So life was better for a few weeks. And then one day, without any notice, Dad said goodbye, picked up his suitcase, and walked out the door. Anna tried to make sense of this in her 6-year-old mind, and as children do, imagined it was all about herself, because that's what children do. I'm bad. My dad doesn't love me. I'm not smart enough. In that moment, Anna created a belief system about herself and the world that stayed with her for many years. In that moment, the scarring around Anna's heart began to take hold. Anna called me about 25 years after that experience, and she was desperate. Her anxiety and depression and anxiety were just out of control. She was afraid of losing her job and the man that she loved, but she was actually more terrified of coming into therapy because she had tried it before and it hadn't worked. And she was so terrified that if she came in and she didn't start to feel better and had to face the idea that she'd have to live her life as she'd been living it, she wasn't going to be able to do that. Well, we finally calmed her down enough. She came in. She sat sort of in the corner of my couch, wrapped up in a big sweater, almost looking like a 6-year-old. And we started to do the heart-brain and some other energy exercises so that she could calm down. And she finally did, and she told me that story about her dad. So it made perfect sense to me that she had anxiety and she had depression, and she didn't think well of herself. She thought, she wasn't good enough. But Anna had never put those pieces together. And when I connected the dots for her, it was like this light went off in her head. And she was finally able to do the work, to discharge the heavy energy, to see that experience now through adult eyes, not the eyes of a 6-year-old, to realize it was not her fault that her dad had left, and then to release the self-blame that she'd been carrying all of these years. Now, I know through my own life walk and through my work on this planet that none of us gets through Earth School without a few bumps and bruises, right? Or some real traumas. And I also know that it is possible to heal those early core wounds in a way that becomes then the fertile ground for our greatest gifts. As I wrap up today, I'd like to leave you with 3 truths. And this is my why, as Simon Sinek would say. You are not your story or your history. You're a spiritual being here having a human journey. You are not broken, beyond repair, or crazy, even though you may have adapted some ways of behaving that haven't always served you. And your deepest wounds can become the fertile ground for the development of your greatest gifts with the right support. Anna is a perfect example of that. She went on to reconnect with her boyfriend. She actually even reconnected with her dad to begin to heal that relationship. She bought a house, she went to grad school, she started doing presentations, but most importantly, she continues to work with children who struggle academically and emotionally, a passionate calling for which Anna is uniquely suited and qualified. As we each heal our inner wounds, we raise our own vibration. And as we raise our own vibration, we just naturally begin to raise the vibration of the people around us. And this is how I believe we start to create heaven on earth. And I hope that you will join me in that journey in whatever way that resonates with you. Thank you, and namaste.